good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you listen, wherever you're listening. It's the Bet Online Salute Detroit podcast. We got 2/3 of the tripod here today. We got the Madman, but don't get fooled. He's not going to keep the beard growing. It'll be gone by Monday. By the time you see our recording after this, it will be gone. He'll be freshly clean, shaven, Jamal Madman Magny. So it is what it is. Madman, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Coach. Great to see you as always, and excited to sort of jump into things. You know, Coach, I don't know how you're feeling about it, but hard to believe that we're 3 weeks from now is the season begins. 2 weeks to Salute to Troy, 3 weeks to the season starting, and obviously a lot of buzz with fall camp and practices beginning, but I get the sense that it's still a little calm, don't you? I mean, it's sort of still kind of eerily calm, waiting, I think, for these next 7 to 10 days for things to really blow up, and we feel like we're in the season, and before you know it, it's going to be all about the hoopla ball, and just can't wait.
Yeah, it's still calm right now. I mean, the 23rd of Salute to Troy, they just started last Friday, I believe. Yep. So they'll be officially a week in. They'll be 7 days in. They still know what day it is. Once you lose track of the days, that's how you know when it's good and it feels like you've been there forever. I do know just to drop a little knowledge on you. So Salute to Troy is normally like the end of camp for us. So we say, oh, camp's over, Salute to Troy, go get your jersey, do the Salute to Troy thing. And then I do know that the hours for practice change between camp and the season. And the season for them starts on the 26th. So they start getting the 20 hours, which includes practice, weightlifting, and film on the 26th. And so their practice schedule changed. School will be started. There's a lot of things that happen and start to function. They do get an extra day, though, because they play on the Sunday. So they get that extra day, but they also get an extra day off. Speaking of that, I don't like how they schedule their first 2 games.
Right.
Because I guarantee you they're not going to play well against Utah State. Because when you think about it, they play Sunday. They have to take a day off. That day off is probably going to be Monday. They're back at it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They went from having a long week to a shortened week, which makes, I don't know, that's something we could talk about down the road, but I just thought about that right now. And they didn't make the schedule. This schedule's been planned years in advance, so it's not something that they did, so it's not their fault, but this is like some of the things. I actually heard a good comment, and I'm going on a tangent. I'm sorry. I'm actually going on a tangent, but I actually heard a comment saying that it's kind of unfortunate what Jen Cohen and Lincoln Riley are inheriting from the Clay Helton and who was the AD before the one that got fired?
Pat Hayden.
Pat Hayden was before Bull?
Pat Hayden, and then Lynn Swan, and then Mike Bone.
So that Lynn Swan, Pat Hayden, there's some stuff that's still seeping into it now that they're kind of in trouble about. Like their schedule, like if you go look, like I think they're scheduled till 2028 right now. They're all season, like Miss is on the schedule and everything. So those types of things, and it's kind of unfortunate. But neither here nor there. I think it's going to be quiet now. They haven't had a fight yet. We're probably going to get a fight around the August 20th date.
There you go. That's
when the fight's that's when we're going to get the peak. Speaking of fights, somebody was mad that there's always fights. I was like, you don't know football, bro. And he was like, why? I was like, there's a fight in every single camp.
Right.
Now reporting things, and so they want to report the fight. There's a fight from high school all the way to the NFL. There's going to be a fight in every single camp, and it is what it is. That's how you keep it moving. But neither here nor there. It's coming. It's eerie. That's why it's eerie, Jamal, because it's coming. It's like one of those dark storms. Like you see it on the horizon, and it's slowly moving upon us. And then before you know it, it's going to be January 21st. We're going to be doing a live show talking about how we won the national championship. And we're going to be struggling to do shows all spring again. So there we go. So it's a revolving circle, but this is the longest part of the revolution. This one right here is this point, but it's where we make our money. Anyway, let's move forward. Let's get on with the show. This offseason, one of the changes Lincoln Riley made was to a strength and conditioning program, right? That's actually one of the things that people said he needed to change. He needed a new DC. Need a new strength and conditioning program, D-line, blah, blah, blah. Just a list of things. I think he went through and checked off, I would say, close to 98% of the things on the list. I don't know if you agree or not, but he checked off a lot of stuff. At the top of his list was a new strength coach, which he did bring in a new strength coach, brought in a new DC. But we're talking about strength. Can you help me out? Who is it? What's the name of the new strength coach? Because I know you guys mentioned his name multiple times, but not.
Yeah, coach. It's eluding me here. Let me pull it up.
It left quick. You. Yeah. See, I'm sorry about that. I put you on the spot. My bad, man.
No worries. No worries. No worries. Bennie Wylie. Bennie
Wylie. Yeah.
It always reminds me of an actor's name. I was like, well, it's not Will Smith. It's not Chris Rock. You know, it always reminds me of an actor's name. You know.
So Bennie Wylie came in and he did a thing. It started a little bit after I was done playing, that they do these before and after pictures. And some before and after pictures came through, and we saw Zachariah Branch, who looks like a stud. We saw, oh man, we just said his name, the defense lineman. What is wrong with me today? What is his name? What's his name?
No. And coach, just to clarify, you know, Bennie Wylie has been on staff with Lincoln Riley since the arrival of Lincoln Riley and has been with him since OU. But I just think the program itself has kind of undergone a very significant transformation in terms of just how they're approaching strength and conditioning, how they're looking at reps, how they're looking at, you know, circuits, how they're looking at just kind of what the nutrition plan is, what the strength plan is. I think there's just a significant overhaul. I think both Lincoln Riley and Bennie Wylie both saw the need for this. And to your point, coach, obviously we're seeing the results here with all of these guys, you know, just kind of looking shredded from their picture last year to this year. I mean, you got Zachariah Branch, you got Braylan Shelby, you got Jade Abazari, you got Anthony Lucas. I mean, all of these guys, and the list goes on, just looking just totally different from what they were a year ago. So, you know, coach, as someone who has played, as someone who's been inside that locker room, as someone who's undergone strength and conditioning at the absolute highest level, I mean, how do you see that? 1,400 pounds cumulatively this team has gained in terms of weight. And if you look at it from the perspective of body fat, they have shredded a significant amount of body fat. How are you kind of seeing this play out over the course of the season, and just how bullish are you on it? And you know, are there any red flags, if any, with such a transformation in such a quick period of time?
So I like it in the sense of the guys up front getting bigger. I don't like it behind the liners, behind the guys who play behind the line. It could be a gift and a curse. So Brenden Shelby, it looks like he's going to play defensive end. Like he's going to be down on the line. He's gained the weight to, and I'm using this example. Looks like he's going to be like Latu. Looks like he's going to play that position. He needed to gain 15 to 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And he gained 15 to 20 pounds because he needed that bark on him, right? He doesn't have to run lightning fast, but he has to be quick enough. He has to be agile. 15 to 20 pounds on Mason Cobb scares me.
Yeah.
Because now, believe it or not, that 15 to 20 pounds could slow him down. It got to get to a point to where you gain 10. Now, Zachariah Branch, I think it has a little bit to do with a year being in the system. We knew he was going to gain this weight. I think there's a little bit of grown man weight that was added to him too. And then I'm not so much worried about him, but I am worried about some players who have gained 15 pounds and they can no longer run.
Yeah.
Right. And I know what we're going to hear. People say, well, they're going to do running workouts, this and that. Stop. I've seen it with my own eyes with guys who's like, I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to get bigger. This is going to be my year next year. They come back 20 pounds heavier, right? And then they're like, man, I am sluggish. I don't have it anymore. Then they have to drop that weight. Luckily, camp drops like, you'll drop weight in camp. You'll drop like between 5 and 10 pounds in camp. And then through the season, you'll drop like it'll be a slow decline. You could lose about between 15 and 20, depending on how much you play. But like sometimes it is a little bit slow. So I'm not like against it. I'm for it. Everybody needs to gain weight. Everybody needs to get stronger. I need to see the results of this. This is is there going to be an ROI on this? Like, is there going to be a return on investment? I think a big thing is with the body fat thing too. I think the nutritionist also stepped in and was a part of this. I think it was a 3-pronged thing. Like, look, we need to change the way we eat. We need to change the way we lift. We need to do a lot of things. I'm a little worried he gave another coach who did something bad another chance. And it's like, that's when Lincoln Riley kind of grinds my gears. Like, you haven't learned your lessons. You needed to make a change there, but you changed the program and not the problem. Hopefully it's not the problem and these kids are better, but we saw that needed to be a problem, but that could potentially be a problem. But as far as what you asked, like, I'm not bearish or bullish on it. It's more of a slow play 401k Roth IRA tax.
I love it. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Is the market going to kill my retirement, or is the market going to make me a rich man after my retirement? So I'm open to it. I'm willing to see what happens. But like Brenden Shelby, I love it. Zachariah Branch, I love it. Anthony Lucas may be too big. It may, even though he's a defensive lineman, he may be too big because I think he's going to be a 3 tech, and you need to be a little bit faster there. So we'll see. I'm open up to it, and I'm willing to see. What do you think about it?
No, I think it's a great point, Coach. I think overall it's very positive because you are kind of leaning into the weight that was gained sort of in the trenches, both on the offensive line and defensive line. And I think overall this team just needed to get bigger and tougher. So to that end, I think holistically it's a very positive thing. But when you go to that next level, to your point, you want to make sure it's the right guys and it's the right weight. And so to that point, and I think that will sort of remain to be seen as well. I think in the case of Zachariah Branch, Coach, I think the weight's going to be really good, to your point, because let's not forget, he was an All-American. We know what he can be, okay? We floated number 5 out there, over the course of the last 12 months or so. He is an All-American, but he's an All-American. He made the All-American team as a special teamers. It wasn't an All-American as a receiver. So he needed to gain some weight to be able to allow himself the strength, the separation, the endurance to sort of be an every down kind of go-to receiver and really deal with the punishment of being an every down receiver over the course of a 60-minute game. So I'm really excited to see the jump that he's going to make. And like we talked about, Zach Branch is one of the 2 Trojans that's been named to Bruce Feldman's freaks list, preseason freaks list. So that's all really good stuff. I think that the second point, Coach, I think it's a phenomenal point you made about Braylan Shelby potentially stepping into that Latu role. That edge that actually is going to be your rover. In many ways, Latu at UCLA last year was the queen on the chessboard, right? The queen on a chessboard can sort of go diagonally, can go up and down, go side to side, go one square, go all the squares. And so in a lot of ways, Latu was positioned on either side of the edge. He was positioned sort of at linebacker. I mean, he was hidden. There was a lot of camouflaging going on. There were delayed blitzes. There was all kinds of stuff that D'Anton Lynn did with Latu. And I think everyone is getting the sense that Shelby has that frame, has that versatility, and now with that 30 extra pounds this year, is he now potentially the queen on the chessboard from a lateral perspective? So I absolutely love that pick, Coach. And then I think the other sort of freaks list specimen to sort of watch, to Bruce Feldman's point, is Emmanuel Pregnon. This is the kid, 12 starts last year, 6'5", 325. He's gotten even more shredded, put on a little bit more weight. I mean, and then you sort of overlay that with the lateral quickness. I think there's some real studs here, Coach, on both sides of the line. And I think it's just going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out, how they play together, and how they move kind of sideline to sideline. But I'm very optimistic with strength and conditioning because it seems like the right guys have gained the right weight by and large. Now let's see how that sort of translates in season. Part of it also, Coach, is, it's like a great boxer as well. My dad always used to tell me this. It was like, the heyday of the heavyweight era, the Ali, Foreman, Frazier, Ken Norton era, right? And when you looked at somebody like Muhammad Ali, there was always a little, like, he wasn't completely cut, right? Because you needed a little bit of fat to burn in those fights. And in a lot of ways, when you're talking about a 60-minute game over 12, 13 games in the trenches, you need some of those guys to have a little bit fat to burn. If they're just completely cut and completely shredded and there's no fat to burn, that's when the cramping starts. That's when, your body can kind of almost freeze up later in the game. So it's going to be interesting to see. We've seen these guys really get cut, which is very exciting from sort of a visual perspective. And obviously they're the experts, but making sure there's enough of that just kind of fat residual, if you will, to make sure that they're burning it the right way over the course of the game and they stay optimally performed over the course of a 60-minute game.
I think if they stay in the 7%, I don't remember what their body fat was, but I think if the O-linemen stay in 12% and like the skills stay in 7%, they'll be fine.
Yep.
I was gonna tell you something and I completely forgot what we were talking about. Jeez. Oh, well, let's move on. You mentioned the freaks list. I had a good point too. I should have wrote it down. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's roll on to the freaks list. So you mentioned Zachariah Branch and Pregnon made it to Bruce Feldman's freaks list. Zachariah Branch right now is considered one of the top special teamers in the world. There's articles coming out saying that he is going to get the ball more and that we need to get him more involved in the offense. That came out from Lincoln Riley after Media Day. I'm all caught up with my thoughts now. I'm sorry, I was slow. That came out from Lincoln Riley at Media Day that he needs to get more involved in the offense and things like that. Coach, what if he doesn't have to? You know what I mean? Like, why do you have to get Zachariah Branch involved and you have all these other threats? What if Zachariah Branch ends up being one of the greatest special teamers in USC history, which is a possibility? Devin Hester just went to the Hall of Fame in the highest league you could possibly play in for being a return specialist. I think it's going to get to a point to where they're going to force things on Zach Branch and it's not worth forcing on. You have enough skill, enough talent, and enough thing. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. And then here's another cliffhanger when we review the season. Here's a good cliffhanger. What if I told you that this team is still building and we're getting excited about everything that they're doing positive? Like they're legit laying a foundation, which I know you wouldn't like because they're 3 years in, which I kind of agree with too. They should have laid this foundation 2 years ago, but neither here nor there. What if like he just becomes a special teamer? Like, what if he's just a freaky ass special teamer and he has enough to go on to leave after 3 years and somebody drafts him and he becomes a special teamer and does the same thing in the NFL and becomes a Devin Hester? Why are we forcing the ball to him?
Coach, I mean, it's a really interesting point, a very rare one. And, we have to sort of double click on that because it's one that we just haven't heard yet about, Zachariah Branch. What version of Zachariah Branch are we going to have over the next 2 years? I think to your point, Coach, I think he's kind of already there as sort of the Devin Hester, where essentially if he sort of plateaus over the next 2 years, I think he's going to get drafted off of being an elite special teamers and then potentially a project at the wide receiver position. But I think the hope here, Coach, is that he maximizes his potential because you just don't see a guy with this level of speed and agility every so often. I mean, this is a once in every 10-year kind of guy because of his ability to go left to right and right to left without decelerating, right? I mean, that's what's so special about this guy. He can make moves and he doesn't have to slow down. And there's an effortlessness, whether he's going north or south or east or west, and he's just got that breakaway speed. So you want him to be able to maximize his potential, Coach. I think if he plateaus, he's a Devin Hester. But I think everyone wants to see him potentially reach that peak of his potential. And I think the peak of his potential, Coach, is Tyreek Hill. I think we're aiming for Tyreek Hill, but, we may have to settle for Devin Hester perhaps in that regard for a variety of reasons. It could be that he's just not getting enough touches because the wide receiver room is so deep. I mean, they got Makai Lemon, your guy. We got Jacoby Lane. We got Deuce Robinson. We got the vets coming back. I mean, this wide receiver room is so deep that, he may not get the touches. And if he doesn't get the touches, does he ever really kind of get into a flow over the course of the season? And that could potentially impact his productivity. But I think Lincoln Riley sees something so special in this guy because I think the best version of Zachariah Branch is kind of a Marshall Faulk meets Tyreek Hill. And you just want to kind of see what the possibilities there are moving forward. And if it doesn't work out, God forbid it doesn't work out, but I think his floor is Devin Hester, to your point.
I think if you put him at a receiver, he has a very low ceiling, and he's pretty close to reaching it. Now, here's a big take for you. Why not just make him a running back? He's 5'10". He's gained the weight now. He's almost 180. He's probably 190 pounds. He could withstand those hits. I mean, we're comparing him to somebody who's going to have their jersey returned to the turnstile. Like, it's the exact same position. He does the exact same thing at a faster pace, at a more elusive pace. Why not put him at running back? Why are we forcing his hand? Not even forcing his hand. We're forcing Miller Moss's hand. This is Zachariah's play. All right, throw it as we got to get him to plays. We got him in the plays. We don't want him to leave. Hey, how about we just turn around and hand the ball off to him and give him an inside zone and let him pick a hole and go? Why don't we just run power? Why don't we run split zone? Why don't we run, if you want to put him at receiver, why don't we run fly sweep? Why don't we use him like they use Reggie? Like, he's that guy, and now his ceiling is very high, and he's more of a threat. Now that you got to pick Jacoby, you got to guard Jacoby Jones, you got Makai Lemon, Deuce Robinson, Karen Harper. Like, there's a bunch of people you got to defend now, plus the Zach Branch, plus the Miller Moss. Like let's put the weapons in the best possible points. Why?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating point, Coach. I mean, again, you're really sort of delving into the unknown here. I mean, it's really interesting. I think that it's probably. I think they're going to give it a shot with him at receiver this year to see, hey, what does that look like? And I think, to your point, if he doesn't get the touches, if it does feel like the offense is forced, if it feels like he's not really getting in a flow and he's not really complimenting everybody else, then I think you explore that between years 2 and 3. I think the question is, even though he's gained the weight, the question is going to be kind of, can he take the pounding? Even with Zach Branch, every time he got the ball, he was electric, he was elusive, but he avoided the hits, right? When he knew it was kind of over, he sort of fell down or he went out of bounds. He was very smart in terms of being able to protect his body because of that top end speed. If you give him the ball 10, 15 times, inside the hash marks, in between the tackles, and he starts getting beaten up, now if you lose that top end speed, you sort of lose the thing that makes him so special. So that's always kind of the risk reward there. But to your point, I mean, it's a bold idea, Coach, and it's one worth discussing. I mean, that's why we're in the offseason. A really interesting take. I think you start him off at receiver, to your point, and figure out how you can make this sort of Marshall Faulk / Tyreek Hill role work. And if it doesn't work out, do you line him up in the backfield and just kind of give him his own space and give him his own role going into the 25 season? Phenomenal point.
There you go. Bet online prop bet. You ready?
Boom.
First play, Fred. How much you want to bet the first play is going to go to Zach Branch? First offensive play is going to go to Zach Branch.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, like, we know it's coming, but yeah, definitely. I don't know.
No, it's a great point, Coach. It's a great point.
He's a better running back, just from my opinion. But what do I know? I'm an armchair coach. Moving on. Pregnon is considered a freak. I think Bruce Feldman got this wrong. I'm going to tell you why I think he got it wrong. I think that whole offensive line is going to be a freak. I think they finally got the offensive line right. And even though Pregnon's a transfer, the rest of them are homegrown. And they've been together for a year now. And they're starting to get that offensive line gel. Offensive line and special teamers are they're like a fraternity. Once you come in, you're in for life, and they love you forever. And you're like, they have like these special bonds, and they all stick together. They all have their own section in the locker room. They all sit. It's a weird relationship that offensive lineman and special teamer have. I think they have that now, and that's what makes offensive lines really good.
Right.
I think that the Polynesian kid, I can't think of his name. I can't think of anybody's name today. I don't know what's wrong with me, and I'm so sorry, everybody. He's going to be really good. Jonah Maheim is Jonah Maheim, but he's a vet. He's a vet presence in a very important spot. and he's a center. He's going to make the call. He IDs the mic, and then whatever they do with the other two positions is going to be great. But I think that offensive line being there, and it's not a transfer portal offensive line. It's a homegrown, been together for multiple years offensive line. You're going to see a very huge difference in the offensive line play. So in that way, I think he got it wrong. He should just put USC's offensive line. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think it's a great point, Coach. And I think that the left side of that line also is very exciting. I mean, when you got the likes of Elijah Paige there, obviously, and then Monheim at center. Yeah. I mean, you could have even gone Paige over Pregnon on the freaks list, to your point. I mean, and then, there's a few sort of options there for sure. It's an interesting one, but I think just by the guts of it, I think Pregnon being 6'5", 325, really good lateral movement. He's done a really nice job, as have others, in terms of the locker, in terms of the weight room this year, reducing the body fat, sort of looking kind of leaner, meaner in that regard. So I think that there's a lot of upside there. And look, I think you had multiple guys to be able to choose from. And the season's going to be defined by that, Coach. It's going to be defined by how well this offensive line holds up and is able to give Miller Moss time to be able to sort of dissect defenses and go through the litany of options that he has at the wide receiver position, and then opening up the holes for Woody, right? And so that's really what this is going to come down to. And then obviously on the defensive side, it's going to come down to that front seven. Who's going to help who's going to help Bear on that interior, and then is Shelby going to be the real deal on the edge, and who's going to be weak side edge, and how is this linebacker rotation going to play out between Mason Cobb, Mascarenas Arnold? You got Gentry. You've got where does Jamil Muhammad play? So I think those are really the two questions: offensive line, and then the front seven. That's going to determine this particular season. So I think, you could have probably picked, Jamil Muhammad on this freaks list. You could have probably picked Shelby on this freaks list. You probably could have picked Mascarenas Arnold on this freaks list. And you probably could have picked Paige or Pregnon. So to your point, I think the two areas that this team needs to be proven in, I think there's a lot of really good raw athletes. And so sometimes there's sort of a numbers game that even if half of these guys pan out, 40% of these guys pan out this year, this team's going to be in a pretty good spot. So again, it'll be interesting. Feldman picked, just by way of reference, he picked Brenden Rice on his freaks list last year, and Brenden Rice had a great year. Would I call Brenden Rice a freak per se? Probably not. But, Brenden Rice had a great year and is now in the NFL. So hopefully similar like results for these two young men on the freaks list this year.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's crazy because he's building a foundation. Lincoln Riley's building a foundation now, and he should have been building he's going about it he went about it the wrong way. He went about it as, I need to win now, and then instead of let's build this foundation. So now he's building this foundation, and it's like now everybody's like, you need to win now. He went about it the wrong way.
Right.
And I get it, I understand, and that's another little carrot that we're going to have for season preview. But so the foundation he's building, I think so far he's been doing a good job. He's more now showing, I know how to coach. I know how to build a program. I'm going to show you guys I know how to build a program. I just think he went about it the wrong way. And he may be a couple of years too late. And I hope he's not. You know what I mean?
Coach, I think to that point, look, it's only year 3. And so I think we all acknowledge that he's got this year and he's got next year. I look at it as, I don't think anything that has been said about Lincoln Riley, from the likes of Paul Feinbaum to Bill Plaschke to all of these guys about his performance, I don't think it's fair yet. I think that you have to sort of look after 4 years. After next season, what's that body of work? And then I think you have to say, look, 4 years, what have you done? You're a $10 million a year coach. You said this was going to be the mecca of college football. You had 4 years. What are the results? I think then at that point, everything is on the table. Every assessment is fair. But I think until then, I think the folks that are kind of going after Lincoln's head, I think it's a little unfair. Now, having said that, chatter is going to get loud a little bit, Coach. If, let's say, they come out of the gate 1-2. Okay, let's say if LSU and Michigan's a loss, Utah State obviously a win, they come out 1-2, there's going to be a little bit of chatter, because if they come out 1-2, Coach, you're looking at 9-9 in your last 18 games, right? If they come out 1-2 with how last season ended, and then you start 1-2. I mean, and then it's kind of like, whoa, 9-9, this is a little weird, especially with everything that's gone on. So I think short of a 1-2 start, and not to say that a 1-2 start means like his job is on fire, but I think the chatter will start again from the national media if it's a 1-2 start. But I think short of that, we have to sort of look at this holistically, and we have to give him the 4 years, because at the end of the day, Coach, after 4 years, then it's a fair assessment no matter what. In today's day and age of college football, if you cannot become a perennial playoff contender after 4 years, by the end of year 4, it's one of two scenarios. A, you're either not an elite coach, or B, you're not at an elite program, or C, it's both. So I think at that point, the diagnosis then is fair to make an assessment. But until then, you gotta give him the opportunity to put his system in place.
No, I agree, and I think, me personally, I think it's not. I think it's going to happen in year 5, just because he started 2 years, and now he's trying to catch up. So it's going to happen year 5. So it is what it is. Like I say, he did it backwards. He should have been what he's doing now. He should have did a year ago. 2 years ago when he first got here,
right,
and then do it on the other side. But it is what it is. But I don't know. I will tell you this though. I'm not too worried about LSU. Ryan told me a stat, and like I said, the output is way more than the input, and Brian Kelly's kind of stuck on the Dabo Swinney thing as far as transfer portal, and I don't think that's how you play today's game. But we will leave that. We'll digress that for future down the line. Definitely. You got anything else before you wrap it up?
No, Coach. I'm excited to tee up the LSU conversation. We'll leave it with this, with the cliffhanger. When you look at LSU from afar, they're kind of a mirror image of USC from afar, right? You've got a coach, year 3. Folks are kind of expecting a step. Maybe not the ultimate step, but they're expecting a step. Both programs having to replace a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Mm-hmm. So there's sort of question marks at quarterback in a sense, but both quarterbacks that are coming in, veterans, know how to run the offense. There seems to be a quiet confidence about both of those young men. And then significant questions on the defensive side in terms of both teams. And so I think based on what USC did in the transfer portal, based on what USC did in terms of strength and conditioning, we feel really good about the improvements. Can the same thing be said about LSU? TBD.
Yeah, definitely TBD. And let's talk about that on Monday. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
We get rolling moving forward. Jamal, has been a good one. We're in, we're out. Let's keep it moving. We appreciate you guys for watching. Jamal, appreciate you for doing this here on your Thursday night. You guys know how it goes. The Bet Online to the Detroit podcast. Live free, fight on.